Now I'm excited to welcome back the legendary Mike North from the Odds Couple on ESPN 1000. You can follow Mike on Twitter at North2North. Mike, thanks for coming back on the Odds Breakers, my man. What is happening on your side of town?
It's always good to see somebody sitting in front of Soldier Field. You know, the Jetsons beat the Flintstones. We're trying to get out of there. We still can't get out. It's like we're held captive. You're going to play here till the year 2090. But in the meantime, you'll buy parcels of land and pretend. But no, hopefully that we'll be moving out of there soon. And it's great to be on with you, buddy, as always. You know that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Chicago, we've been waiting for a stadium. Now they're talking about, like, Kevin Warren mentioned a dome, and the whole Arlington Park thing went to hell because they raised the taxes on them immediately. So we don't know what's going on with that. Boy, did they jack those things up, man.
I think they're coming out here saying, nah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think by the time 2030 hits, you'd still be maybe under construction. So hopefully.
Well, that's what they're saying, 2030. Yeah. So, I'm looking forward. That will be, let's see here, 23. Yeah, I'll be spry. That'll be my 77th birthday. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to somebody yelling. I look this way when they're yelling over here. That would be fun.
We'll see what happens. I mean,
oh yeah, I can't wait to see the blue and orange blurs on the string on the field as I approach my 78th birthday.
There you go. No, you'll see just fine, Mike.
Oh,
you don't talk like that. Well, let's talk a little baseball first, man, because I'm loving baseball. I'm having a great year. The Cubs are kind of where I expected them to be. I kind of expected a bad start, and then the middle of the year, they kind of heated up just like after the All-Star break last year. And, here they are. Those pesky Brewers happened to beat the Rangers all weekend. And that's something we didn't expect, Scherzer and everything. I almost made a bet on Scherzer. I'm like, I'm just like, it's like this Rangers, something's wrong with this line. And then something's wrong with these numbers. And the Brewers just swept them. And the Cubs still sitting at 3 back, and now it's a lot tighter than I thought it would be. I thought that this would be the series that the Cubs catch up. They blow one against the Royals for no reason whatsoever after that Sox game, after that home run. But I think Morel hit that. But here we are. Will the Cubs get this done and win this division, or now are we just praying for wild card?
Well, I told them in a video I did on Twitter, don't get rid of Bellinger. Start adding tools. Quit talking about rebuild. You got to have a team for next year. You have a team for the year after that. What people forget is when you go into a rebuild mode, that gives the general manager the excuse for 4 years, 5 years. Hey, don't mess with me. I got a project going. Well, that's blown up on one side of town. On the other side, they've retooled. They were 6 under when I did a video 4 days before. 6 under in the loss column. As far as the last playoff spot, when I made a video on the Thursday before the trade deadline. I said, don't do it. And to be honest with you, I'm very pleasantly surprised with Jed Hoyer. I'm surprised with Tom Rickett in a fine way. They did the same thing last year when I told them don't get rid of Happ, although he's struggling a little bit right now. You can't get rid of your pieces if you want to get better. And if you keep getting rid of pieces for prospects, that's all you're going to get, and you're not going to get out of anything. They believed in the team. I think they saw the schedule. They got Detroit tonight, which is coming to play every game, by the way. I had them yesterday. They're coming to play every game. They're big deal. They want to be the Orioles of next year, I believe, in that division. They think it's winnable. The White Sox are going to be a non-factor in that division. Cleveland is weak. They see an opportunity to challenge Minnesota next year. You'll get a good look at them tonight. So I'm worried about the Cub game tonight. They lost one against Kansas City, but they took care of business, for the road trip. I mean, for the homestand. If they don't win it, it won't be because they were losing. I mean, the other teams kept them out. I just think they're minus something, 200 something to make the playoffs, and I already bet that, so I'm fine.
Oh yeah, you probably got a better number on that too.
Well, yeah,
I got a plus 375 before the season started to make the playoffs. I threw a smaller bet on the.
But now it's a lot clearer.
Yeah,
if you bet them now, you're not going to get them at that. I don't think, are you?
No chance. No. Probably minus 150 now.
Yeah,
it bounces around every game.
Absolutely,
it just depends, And there's a few in this race, but I mean, Stroman's out, and that was just some bad news. You think he's coming off the DL, and all of a sudden it's like, what the hell's going on with his ribs? What? It's just one after another here, and that's just their problem is the pitching. And once in a while, the bullpen comes through, but a lot of times they've been blowing it. So I don't.
They got
trust
that Andale, who's converted 18 out of 19, 19 out of 20. He's in the running for MVP of the Cubs, along with Justin Steele and Bellinger. I just think they're a good ball club. Hendricks said the other day, Kyle Hendricks, they love being together. They love winning. That's their number one priority. Well, that's out the window for half the teams right now. So hopefully, they'll continue to take advantage of the schedule, the way that it's presented. They got Pittsburgh. They got Detroit coming up. These are teams that are beatable teams for a team that has, I think, an all-star caliber lineup with guys like Swanson, who Bellinger, Stroman got hurt, but Stroman set the table for them early. He's the guy that showed them at the beginning. So you can't take that away. He's got some struggles right now. Yeah, they're winning with guys like Hendricks, Assad, some people you never heard, Smiley sometimes. I think he'll be a good short relief man in the playoffs if he gets picked up. They picked up Candelaria at third. You needed somebody because Wisdom wasn't getting the job done there. They got some flexibility with Bellinger. You can DH him. You can squeeze other guys into the field then. You could put Morel in center instead of Bellinger and put him at first. So I think we're in pretty good shape right now.
I think they're in good shape, at least from an injury.
Sound like I know what I'm talking about almost.
There you go, my man. You always do. Come on, Mike.
Yeah. Oh.
Years of practice. But the team that doesn't look like they've had years of practice is the White Sox. And man, coming into the season, a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon. I think that was one of them. But they're like, okay, they're gonna, they got rid of their manager, they got a new one. Here they are, they're ready to advance again. They traded one of their stars, and he was Brayu, and he's not even doing that good with Houston. I don't think so. And now here we are, and they're just completely out of it. They're sellers, and it looks like a start of a rebuild, doesn't it?
Well, we're not going to play that game again. I'm not going for it. I don't think the fans are on the rebuild card. Get a team out there. Quit playing around. You bought 4 or 5 years and did nothing. You had the biggest overvaluation of talent, I believe, in White Sox history. This team was projected to run the division for the next 3, 4, 5 years with guys that have proven nothing. They don't have a good minor league system right now. Their manager, they got rid of their manager. Well, you get rid of Tony La Russa and replace him with a guy named Pedro Grifoyle, you're not going to win. He was in the Royal organization. They let him go. And the Royals are a rebuilding type ball club. But he got his big chance. And when he got his big chance, he blew it. Kiev, that's just the way it is. And I'm watching these guys. There's maybe 2, 3 players I'd want from this team. I like Vaughn at first. I think he's only had about 250 professional bats before he got in the major leagues. I mean, there's guys in the majors that have had 2,000 at bats in the minors. So that's a part of growing up as far as the White Sox are concerned. They should have maybe seasoned him a little bit more, but Tim Anderson's gone. I mean, he's completely lost. I don't know what happened to him. Moncada and Kopech for sale has been a complete bust, like I called the day it happened. And, it sounds eerily familiar, the hope that fans had of the White Sox for the hope that the fans have of Justin Fields and the Bears. Same type of hype. And I'm just hoping to God, I'm praying to God that something turns out good for the blue and orange compared to what's happened to the boys from the South Side.
I mean, that's an interesting comparison because there is a lot of bipolarness really with this. I mean, there's so many people that love them, and then there's a lot of sharp people that I respect that hate them this year.
Yes.
And you and I.
We don't want to mention any names, but I know many sharp people that don't have jobs in the media that bet. They're taking unders. They're going to fade the Bears. Yep. They will not touch the 16-1 odds that Fields had for. I mean, there's a guy. Nothing against him. He's got maybe massive potential. He hasn't shown it yet. But it's hard to pick anybody for MVP that's lost 9 straight football games as a quarterback in the NFL. And will that turn around? They made some improvements. Is DJ Moore enough? We'll see. But you have defense to contend with. You've lost pieces from there. Speedy team. Maybe one of the 5, 6 teams that could maybe surprise that never made the playoffs the year before because of the intangibles. But I'll give you the answer that I failed to give when I was on Visson with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard. And I didn't ignore Mitch. I got on the Fields thing. It depended on him and the first game with the Packers. If they lose that, do they spiral? Here's my deal. Since 1960, and I meant this, he asked me, can the Bears get in the mix? I don't know. First time ever. In other years, I knew they stink. They're good. They're going to be really good this year. Maybe not so good next year. Every year. And I don't know what's going to happen this year. And that's maybe the fun of it. But I don't know. Would you take the over or under 7.5? I mean, last year they did well in the preseason, not better than they are this year. They're 2-1 this year. But then they won 2 out of 3 to start the season off and then lost the rest of their games. So can they go up 5 more wins? I don't know. I wouldn't touch it, to be honest with you. And I think they're a third place team in the division.
I see your point, and I wouldn't go over. That's for sure. And I watched Justin Fields every game last
for sure. Have you seen the defense? Have you see, there's a lot of first-year guys. The other night, they didn't even play Fields. He may go in with the least amount of time in the preseason. And I think he needs snaps. Now, he had 3 for 3 the first game, 129 yards, short passes. People criticized him. I go, Montana made a living that way for a decade, throwing the short pass to Rathman and Craig. All you see is the Rice highlights. But can you really say Kiev's going to let's put 5 dimes on them being 5 games better just because Rodgers is out of the division? What happens if they lose the Green Bay first game and they're only 3-point favorites? It's crazy.
Absolutely. They could lose this game. You have a much more seasoned coach with Matt LaFleur.
Very good point.
I'm getting back and forth with Mike and Matt LaFleur here. But yeah, you got a guy that's been there before. You got Love, who's sat on the bench and watched Rodgers, and he's probably going to come in a little bit calmer than, Fields, which has this massive expectation. And he wasn't accurate last year. So something's got to switch here. And now everyone sees Jalen Hurts and they compare them because they're both fast guys, right? They're both fast. They're both athletic. So obviously the Bears are going to do it.
Didn't one of them go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think so. It was a different guy, and his name wasn't Fields yet. But
yeah,
Fields has been in the league 1 year less than him, so everyone's correlating that, and that's what I hate doing in sports betting. I preach against it all the time. Just because it worked for this group doesn't mean it worked for this group. And you still have massive problems. Chevin Jenkins is now injured. I heard up to 6 weeks from Brad Biggs. It's like, what else is going to drop here? And we don't even know how these guys are going to gel together. It might not happen for a while. It's a new team, and we don't know about Matt Eberflus. I see the upside with some of the people they picked up. I love the Tremaine Edmonds pickup. I love TJ Edwards. They did pretty well with the linebackers there. Their secondary is a little questionable to me. Their defensive line, I hope the 2 draft picks come up here, right? Because they did pass on Jalen Carter. They passed on Jalen Carter there. So let's hope one of these guys shows up there, Mike.
Fields is the only guy that can hurt you. I believe the way to beat the Chicago Bears this year will be more by ground than by air. I believe you can run on their front 4. You can run on their front 4. You can scheme on their front 4. Undisciplined maybe group, trying to get better, maybe too young. You said they improved at linebacker. You lost Roquan Smith. You didn't improve at linebacker from what you had, but you didn't want to pay. Now, the secondary's got quickness, and they've been pretty impressive. But they sat everybody the other night like they won 12 games last year. Brady, in his last couple of years, played more time at quarterback than Justin Fields does. Mm-hmm. That's just crazy for the amount of experience one has over the other. I mean, I talked to my buddy Carmen DeFalco. I go, Carmen, can Justin Fields he may not hardly play in the third game. So you going in with limited snaps, maybe under 10. Now, last year he did play in the third. This is information, folks. You don't get other places. Kiev gets it from me, okay? 14 or 16 last year. So in the third game. So he did play. So I'm hoping he plays a lot. But if he plays limited time, they're in protective mode not to get hurt for that big game against Green Bay. And their first 2 games, folks, Green Bay and Tampa, once again, this is why Kiev gets me on the line. They're favored in both of those games. The Chicago Bears, with 10 straight losses, one field didn't play it, are favored at home. That's a lot of pressure for a young ball club, young coaching staff looking for Fields to jump up big.
Well, the way you're putting it here, if you don't make that bet against the Bears week 1, you're going to feel pretty stupid if it goes through.
Well,
you know, one of those
let's
situations.
say they lose to Green Bay. If they beat Green Bay, they got some momentum. We finally beat. Who cares if Aaron Rodgers isn't here anymore? We beat their guy. But if the guy, look, I've been hearing the kid from Green Bay is a bum for 4 years. Can't get on the field. Well, he's behind Rodgers, a 4-time MVP. If Fields is so much better than him, then why is it just a standard 3-point dog for Green Bay against the Bears at home?
Yeah,
with the great Fields taking the snaps for the Bears and ready to take the next step. That's the only thing that concerns me. But they are favored, so you got to give them that. So hopefully they play up the form.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. And being your favored,
Again,
it's in this could really start the trajectory of their season. If this loss happens, they look bad. The Packers, all they need to do is really run the ball well, and they should be able to come out with a win. I mean, that's how bad the run defense was, especially when they lost Roche, obviously Smith, right?
Yeah.
I almost forgot his name already, but Edmonds is going to be slided in. Hopefully that makes up some, but it's all about the 3 technique up front. Our guy's going to come through and start that. I'm going to say no.
I hear this. Justin Fields needs a better offensive line. Every team does. Every week, quarterbacks run for their lives if you watch all the games, okay? It's what you do with that offensive line. For instance, Joe Burrow's offensive line, historically the last couple of years, has been as bad as the Bears' offensive line. But he's Joe Burrow's. That's what Justin Fields has got to do. He's got to overcome that like every other quarterback. How many times you see Brady stand in there and finally get rid of the ball, and then all of a sudden, the guy's in his face. A million times they get hit. It's what you do with any type of offensive line. You have to overcome the bad guard. You have to overcome maybe that right offensive tackle that's playing in only his 3rd game. And that's what the good quarterbacks do. They play even if they cover up flaws, Kiev. Joe Burrow, if he's not on Cincinnati, okay, we're going to see flaws that you never saw before. Great quarterbacks cover up flaws. And the Bears have flaws. Let's see if Justin Fields can cover those up.
Great point. And I will have some more info on how I'm playing Joe Burrow in our next show coming up here on Thursday. But let's go.
I'm on pins and needles.
It's a good one. NFC North, then. I'm guessing who do you like for the division? I mean, from a win total perspective, the Bears and Packers about 7.5, Vikings 8.5, and the Lions 9.5. I hate to say it. I almost feel like the Lions and the Vikings could be a little overrated this year too. I don't like any of these teams that much.
Nobody's talking about the Vikings like they were 3 years ago. For some reason, why do I get the idea? As long as they got that slinger back there that hasn't proven himself all the way. He's like the cold weather Jimmy Garoppolo. Only Garoppolo's decorated, and they wanted to get rid of him. I mean, what's happened to Jimmy Garoppolo's criminal? You've been in the NFC title game. You've also been in the Super Bowl. You got a record of like 70%, and they go draft some kid for 3 picks that's going to be a bust. I'm hearing bad things about him already. Okay, you got Purdy. You got some backups. But I'm telling you, I got a new theory. You want to hear my theory?
Absolutely.
I threw him for that, folks. Watch this. I'm going to bet for some over and unders based on the 2 quarterbacks on the teams this year. In other words, who's the backup if this guy gets hurt? Are you going to put your money on Stroud and Andy Dalton at Carolina? I mean, you may think he's the best backup quarterback. I think a team. You ready for me to give you my yearly Mitch Trubisky thing?
Let's hear it.
Pittsburgh the other night. Pickett, 3 for 4, touchdown, get him off the field. Mitch Trubisky, 10 of 13, 80 yards, touchdown, bingo, get him off the field. The 2 of them, you have 2 quarterbacks If one goes down, you got an insurance policy, a starter that has a winning record in the NFL, that has started multiple games, over 55, 60 games, playoff tested, and knows the system. So Pittsburgh's going to be one of my teams based on one thing. If the quarterback goes down, maybe you lose something, but not much. He's been in the wars. There's other teams, like I just said, that have Andy Dalton that keep going to that trough. Okay. Then you got Jacoby Brissett at the Commanders, but their first team quarterback's not that good, right? Gardner Minshew at the Colts. He might end up being their starter. They got him listed as a backup. Taylor Heineke. Interesting. Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke. I sort of like the over in that 8.5 because they got somebody, I think, that could play who was a starter in the league who I like. How about this one, folks? Are you going to bet against New Orleans? Oh, my God. Derek Carr is down. Oh, wait a minute. Jameis Winston's coming in and threw 3 touchdowns the other night, for instance. That's another one, folks. I think you got a possibility. Look who the second-string quarterback is on the team. And if you're not sure about a team, that could be your final decision. If you got New Orleans and you know Jameis Winston is another year with the system and he's fine and he's throwing the ball good as a second stringer, then you're not afraid to take a team like that if Derek Carr gets hurt.
New Orleans has the easiest schedule, followed by the Falcons. And the only reason the Falcons isn't as easy is because they play New Orleans twice, and New Orleans has a higher win total. So you flip-flop these two teams.
But you get my point, right? You get my point on that. They have a little, we look at strength.
Well, I get your point, Mike, because I did the same thing with Miami.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, a guy that got 3 concussions last year, and who's your backup? Skylar Thompson? Mike White? Are you kidding me? They spend all this money on all this talent, and that's the backup you pull up. I would have traded for Jameis Winston or something. Just have something there that can throw the ball.
What happens if Prescott gets hurt again? You got Cooper Rush.
Okay? Yeah, Cooper Rush, the game manager. Yeah.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble. That's where the big money hurts. Sam Darnold with the 49ers as your backup, and you got Purdy as your starter. I don't know.
They don't have a number 1 quarterback, Mike. You don't know about Purdy yet.
Sure. I like Huntley backing up Jackson for a couple games. I like Huntley having to play for the Ravens for a week, for more than 3-4 weeks at a time. Mike White of the Dolphins, he could be a starter, like you said. The other kid, he got out of bed the other day, got dizzy. I mean, if he gets up and puts his feet on the ground and his head shakes, he gets a concussion. You know what I'm saying? PJ Walker, the Bears, if Fields can't get it done, the other 2 guys are worse. PJ Walker, that's a disaster. You're breaking everything on that inexperience and no backups, no veteran. They could maybe play well and maybe put too much pressure on the kid. They seem to be in protective mode. I like the Eagles with Hurts and Mariota. Mariota's a good second stringer. Bailey Zappi for the Patriots. What do you think?
Mariota's had a bad preseason so far. We wonder if he's going to make the team. Zappi looked good a little bit last year, and then he had that bad game. I think the Patriots just were complete idiots on how they treated Mac Jones last year. And it was all because they had that horrible offensive coordinator, Patricia, who was a defensive guy. That was just all Belichick script. I don't know if he went senile or what, because that was just one of the worst calls I've seen in football, especially from a coach as acclaimed as him. But what I probably should ask you, Mike, and this is a gambling show, a sports betting show, as we all know, from an ATS perspective, which team might be a little underrated or overrated? You can give me 1 each if you want, 2 each, whatever. Coming into the 2023 season, because that's what we care about. There's going to be spreads that reflect all these preseason thoughts anyway. You can say, oh, this team's going to be bad. Yeah, no crap. The Texans are, 15-point dogs against the Eagles, right? It's like, yeah, you're not telling me anything new. But what we care about is where we can find some value. Right. I got one in mind that's a little bit underrated.
Okay, go ahead. You go first.
And I think it's not because of the backup. And I'm not talking about from a season win total perspective. They can lose every single game, but if they cover the spread, it's a team that's only going to be favored in 2 or 3 games, which is the Washington Commanders. This defense was extremely good last year, and the only time they weren't good was at the end of the season where they kind of gave up. I mean, if you're a defense busting your balls all year long, and your offense is just not going to score points, you let the other teams walk on you. But they have the talent there to really make a riverboat Ron type season. He's good when people doubt him. And here, let me tell you about Sam Howell. There was a year at North Carolina before he lost everyone. If he could have entered the NFL draft, that would have been better, right? But he lost everyone at North Carolina. So we went from the top draft pick, the top prospect, to dropping way down because he wasn't playing with anybody. He could be good. He could be. He's got Terry McLaurin there to throw to. He's got some big receivers there. I mean, from an ATS perspective, I'm talking. I'm not saying they're gonna. I'm saying they could be in these games. So that's undervalued that I'm thinking of, Mike.
I think you're right. And I think Chico last year, they played as hard as they could. He did the most with what he could. He was supposed to be fired again for the 4th straight year, what have you. I know Ron. I worked with them in Chicago on the radio. We had good rapport. Respect the hell out of him. And I know Stephanie, his wife, and their kids when they were little toddlers. Heck of a football player, played the way that he coaches. So I have a lot of respect for Ron. I like that pick. I'll give you one that I think if you bet him every game, you got a good chance of covering most of the time against them, if you bet against them. I'm going to go Tampa Bay. I'm going to go against Baker Mayfield. I'm going to go against Kyle Trask. I'm not a Kyle Trask guy. I remember all the excitement about him his last year at Florida. It wasn't, I'm not saying nothing against him, but I'm not raising the flag. It didn't wow me. Okay. I know that you'll look at the stats. It's Florida. Shane Matthews looked good at Florida. You know what I mean? I can name you. Look at the guy. Look at my
Danny
guy.
Werfel. Remember Werfel?
They all look good at Florida. Even Gino Toretto with Miami. You know what? We love him. He's a top Paisan. But once he got in the pros, he goes, now where's all the receivers? I mean, another Ohio State deal. They go to programs in the pros that aren't as talented as the college teams they left. I think Trask and Mayfield, I think people are hopeful. I am for Baker Mayfield, but somehow I just think if you bet against Tampa Bay and the rest of their football team, you'll cover.
Yeah,
they lost Brady. They lost Brady.
I don't like the coach, Todd Bowles. When Brady won, he was with Bruce Arians, but then Bowles comes in, who was a failure before. But then they promote him because Bruce Arians leaves and probably wants to be gracious, and he knows it's the end for Brady. It was perfect time to leave.
I know people that praise him that worked with him, but as an assistant.
Yes, an assistant. Some people are great assistant coaches, and that's why I think it's a great call. And I'm going to say the same thing about Dennis Allen. Now, they do have the easiest schedule, and it doesn't mean they're not going to win 10, 11, 12 games. But I think they might be a fade ATS. You got Kamara that's got all these head problems, coming in, making stupid, terrible choices, punching people in casinos and things like that. You got a really good receiver in Chris Olave, but Derek Carr, I've seen Derek Carr lose more games than he's actually won. He's got a ton of talent, but man, he gets in his own head and he makes some just dumb mistakes while blowing leads. He can be a gamer when he's down, and you've seen him beat the Cowboys, but man, I just don't have a ton of faith in Derek Carr, and I think there could be a quarterback controversy. And I like fading coaches, fade the new coaches coming on in, fade D'Amico Ryans, first week, fade these guys because they have no idea what they're doing or coming into. And it's not like the expectations are that much for them anyway. They're in a honeymoon year almost. Bet the coaches that are good in NFL week 1, Mike.
Well, I'll tell you what. One thing I want to get on before I go to the coaches. Zach Wilson is your backup in New York. And I happen to be one of those people that thinks that Rodgers will do okay. Now, what's okay in New York? You better win 10 games. You better. If you're Aaron Rodgers, they've been waiting for you. And Favre did it for a while, and everybody got excited. Then he went to Minnesota, where it was better. He had some issues in New York. But that's an interesting one. Zach Wilson is your backup if Rodgers gets hurt, folks.
He's not looking that good.
And he's not.
No, and that's Yeah, they
That's a
got rid of
bad one.
White. I'm not even sure that White is not better than
Better.
Wilson, to be honest with you. And I don't like White that much, but I don't think Wilson is the answer. And he played like the easiest BYU schedule due to a COVID year that I've ever seen in my entire 47 years of existence, Mike. And
Yeah, BYU.
and then he becomes the number 2 pick in the draft because of
Yeah,
BSers out there in their
yeah.
draft ratings, throwing him up like he's going to be some god. The dude had no pass rush whatsoever at BYU. He had wide open guys. You could just throw timing routes and win. It was just too easy for him. But yeah, that's another situation where let's hope Rodgers stays healthy. The good news for Rodgers is, I never liked the man being a Bears fan. I always thought he was a little bit shady of a personality and all that. But what 2 things he does well, he doesn't get injured, for one, and he doesn't throw interceptions that often. Maybe last year was a little bit of an outlier, but he doesn't. And so those just let your defense take care of business. Maybe that does work out pretty well for him. So
Well, the
at
only
least
thing he's got to worry
Rodgers
about,
more.
he has a stinker game starting off. The New York media starts frying his ass. He ain't in Green Bay no more. You're not in Green Bay anymore, Dorothy. You're going to be taking heat you never took before if you get off to a bad start in New York City. Believe me when I tell you this, they're expecting nothing but deep into the playoffs.
Well, here's the problem with the Jets. Their schedule is really hard in the beginning. Their first. Yeah. I'm gonna just name these games here.
And I'll give you the coach, yes or no.
For the Jets. They're very tough. So they're gonna start here, regular season, Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's upset that they're a dog in this game, or just barely a favorite. Depends where you look. At Dallas. Loss. At Dallas.
Mike, I gotta say this too. I think Mike McCarthy has been getting a bum rap. I think the media doesn't like him. I don't think they like his game management, which is open for interpretation at times. But I don't give a damn. Dak Prescott gets hurt. He's, to me, cost him some games. I think he's going to have a terrific year. But they're crapping on a coach that's won 24 games the last 2 years. Yeah. And the only coach who ever won a Super Bowl for Aaron Rodgers and vice versa. If Aaron Rodgers was so good, how come the only guy that could help him get there, okay, if I'm not mistaken, was McCarthy? Period. End of story.
I can see 0-2 from the start, and then probably I'll give you this Patriots win. I'm not loving it, but I'll give it to you with the Jets. So the Jets
Brady ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, and then you got the Chiefs. I mean, you have to assume a loss here.
Yeah.
So you're starting out probably 1-4, then at Denver.
If they start out 1-4, there's going to be anarchy.
And that's a problem. And that's a problem at Denver. If they can't beat Denver here 1-4, then the Eagles is a loss.
I think McCarthy's. I would love a coach who's won 12 games the last 2 years for my football team. Maybe I'm out of line. They haven't done anything. I mean, I know they got some great players, but they've been a doormat since the 90s, for Christ's sake.
I don't love McCarthy, but I also know there's worse out there than him.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and so the Jets will have it very hard. If you like their season win total over or them to win the division, you want to wait until week 7 to make that play, because that's where it evens out. At New York, to Chargers at home, maybe at the LA Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders. Buffalo is going to be tough, but then Miami, hopefully 2 is done by them for them. Atlanta, Houston at Miami, Washington at Cleveland. The whole schedule is a little tricky, let's just say. So this is not an easy schedule at all for the Jets.
I hope Cleveland loses every game with that rat at quarterback. How's that? I hope they lose every game.
A lot of people are high on Cleveland. I'm not buying it. I don't think Stefanski's a good enough coach, personally.
I never heard of their backup quarterback. I don't even know who he is. Dobson or somebody. I mean, backing up a good talent that hasn't found his way yet. I think that thing haunts him a little bit. I think when he's preparing for a game, he's thinking also about all the people that know that he got away with absolute authority with getting the only fully guaranteed contract in the history of the league after pulling the league through that mess. What a absolute worst all-time favorite contract for the worst kind of guy. Period.
Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson could push Josh Dobbs, who played for the Steelers, out of there. Kellen Mond's toast. Just forget about him.
Yeah.
He's not making
the team. He is.
But you got Deshaun Watson. I'm going to predict it's going to be DTR from UCLA, which was a late draft pick. And
Okay.
one I thought that was a pretty good pick. So
I
if
hope they
Deshaun
lose
Watson
every
get
game.
it going.
I hope they lose every game. The only thing I like about Cleveland is Kill the Irishman about Danny Green. It's a movie on HBO.
I love that movie.
Yeah, me
That's
too. That's what I love. I love Danny Green was the tough. They talk about the football players, Irishman Danny Green. Watch that one, folks.
I'll give you a season win total that I took under, Mike, and I took it for
I love
plus
season win totals.
All right. Well, you're right up the alley then.
I'm ready to roll.
I'm going with the Chiefs under 11.5, my friend. And I got plus money on it. Here's the thing. Yeah, they're a Super Bowl team. They won the Super Bowl last year. It took a little bit of assistance there in the end of those final two games with some interesting calls, but that's Mahomes, and we've seen it enough. We've seen it enough with Brady. It's not like I'm not saying that they're not going to get to the playoffs or the Super Bowl, but I don't think they do it with 12 wins. I think they get in like a 10-11 win game. Maybe it's like right up to the end with the Chargers here, or with possibly Denver, because they have a great coach. But the problem that I have with them is they're rebuilding their offensive line. Remember that when they rebuilt their offensive line that first year, they were terrible the first 8 or 9 games. And then they finally came up and won. Well, then they shed some offensive linemen, they're coming in fat and happy. And you know what? Mahomes' little roll to the right, they're going to have to figure that out at some point. 2.8 seconds, the man goes to the right. That's what he does. And then Kelsey, he knows exactly where Kelsey's going to be. Why can't these defenses finally figure that out? I think that the books, and Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I am not going to deny him and Burrow for sure. But right now, I just think it's a hangover type year. They won a Super Bowl. They're coming in. They don't want to get early. Any big spread, I'm going to be probably fading them. And they'll probably win by 2 or 3 points at the end. But I just don't see this team getting to 12 wins with a first-place schedule, Mike.
It's a Super Bowl team. We know what happens to them the next year. They struggle with the point spread. The 85 Bears struggled with the point spread the next year. I mean, that's just the way it is. They didn't win the next year. The thing with Mahomes is something that I've witnessed myself hundreds of times. When an athlete runs on the court, are you winning already? And I saw that with Michael Jordan. When he ran on the court against certain teams, most teams, whether it be Atlanta, whether it be Cleveland, they were always up 3, 4, 5-0 when he ran on the court before the tip-off. I feel the same way about Mahomes. I know what you're saying. He's one of those guys that almost pushes the envelope where I'm going to let the competition stick around. He's the boxer that lets the competition stick around. And then at the end, he's going to be boom, 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 being Patrick Mahomes. So I'm with you 100%. But Patrick Mahomes and Michael Jordan, he's the latest of people that I've seen compared to Jordan, that when you run on the field, the other players look and go, oh, damn. You know what I mean? So they know they got a pedigree that wants to break Brady's record. I think he's the Tiger Woods aiming at Nicklaus's record that he fell short of for whatever reason you want. I knew it would happen. I thought that if he hadn't done things to himself, he probably would have proved me wrong. I think Mahomes is going after Brady right now, and he's got.
Oh, he's circled Brady for sure, it's early in his career, early enough in his career.
Yeah, but you got to win. You got to win.
Well, here's what Brady also had: team-friendly contracts. They were able to pay for some guys, and it wasn't the Patriot way to pay for running backs and receivers, and it worked. They paid for Gronk a little bit, right, and some other tight ends. They had a nice 2 tight end sense. They did it the right way, but at the same time, the Chiefs paid Mahomes a lot of money, and he's always sucking up a bit of that, and that's why they have to keep changing out guys.
Rodgers was at Green Bay, because Rodgers at Green Bay never gave a cent back. Never gave a cent back. He could have won more than one Super Bowl. It's called deferred payments, like Brady did, but he didn't do that. Then he comes to New York, and he does it, gives up the millions to bring more players in because he knows he doesn't have enough. He never did that for the most part in Green Bay. And if he did, he's the kind of guy that would tell you. So I'm puzzled as to, he could have had a fantastic deal in Green Bay, given a little money, still made, because it doesn't cost anything comparable to live in Green Bay than New York.
Well, he hated the ownership there. And that's what it's been like that for years. It was quiet for a while. He wanted to take every single bit he could, and he was kind of on the way out. He stayed for the fans for as long as he could.
At the end, he cut his own throat because he cut his own throat, Kev. Because he didn't have the personnel, and you know what? It cost him. Because to me, him and Favre, 2 and 32 years, losers. Period.
Favre's in a little bit of trouble.
But you know what? Rodgers was in the simplest division in football for so many years, like Brady was with Buffalo. Brady was 35-3 against the Bills, folks, when he was in the East. The Jets, look at those teams back then. Rodgers should have been able to capitalize more on the division he is, like Brady did, where Brady had 6-7 week games off a year playing the pansies of the NFC East or the AFC East.
Right. Yeah. No disagreement there. Well, why don't you give us a season win total, Mike, that you like for 2023?
I'm going to go over 8.5 Atlanta.
Okay. I love it. I'm on them. Yep. Yeah.
I'm going 8.5 Atlanta. Not talking about them. Not too many name guys. So, they got some. This Ritter kid, I'm hoping he can get it put together. I think New Orleans is beatable, like you said earlier. It's not like the division with Tampa Bay is a powerhouse. So I'm going to take the over with Atlanta.
I love that because, like I said earlier, that schedule is terrible. Here's what Ritter at least did do last year over all these rookie quarterbacks. He played the last 4 games.
Yes.
And he's got some real NFL experience. And I don't care if he's not looking bad in the preseason, because when it came down to it, he looked pretty good in those last games. I watched him. He wasn't bad. And now
it's the quarterbacks. It depends on the quarterbacks of these teams.
Well, Calvin Ridley's there now. They had nobody to throw to but Pitts, and Pitts was double covered. Now they can help each other out a little bit. They got Bijan Robinson, a stud running back. Now I don't like running backs normally picked early, but you know what? It is what it is, and they still were able to fill some voids. They were aggressive in free agency, and they had a lot of picks. If they stay healthy, easily over 8.5, and that thing's already juiced up. I bet them to make the playoffs, Mike, at plus 180 3 months ago. So
you get it.
I love it. I am completely on the same side as you. Well, my man, a few more minutes here. Any other teams or thoughts that you'd like to get off your back for the NFL season?
I think a team that's going to disappoint is a team you brought up earlier, Miami. I think they're disappointing. I think that they're banking too much on a guy that if he gets up and hits his head, getting up on something, on the lamp or something, that he could be out for too much. I just think there's a lot of gambling going on there on him and on the situation in Miami. I think their coach is okay, but he's the guy that kept putting them back in when he was getting dinged up, and I think that's something to keep an eye on. I'm going to say Miami's going to downgrade.
Yep. So right on with me. I took their under season win total 9.5 a long time ago. It was one of the earlier bets that I made. Miami is that team that put all their cards in on a injury-prone quarterback. When I say injury-prone, he's very injury-prone. So it's I'm just not a big believer in Skylar Thompson. He played okay at Kansas State, but he didn't ever scream NFL to me. Mike White, just a
look at Justin Herbert. We didn't mention Justin Herbert. I'm tired of hearing about him. To me, Justin Herbert, they talk about him every year, and every year I'm going, where's Justin Herbert? And he doesn't have a good backup. Stick, his name is, or somebody. I watched him last night. I mean, I know that everybody loves. I love San Diego. Everything about him, the town, the uniforms, everything. They don't. Not San Diego, LA. They just don't have the home field. And I'm hoping Herbert can turn it around, but they don't have a backup in case something happens to him.
Yeah, and Herbert has been durable. He's a big guy. Yes, the interesting thing was with Lombardi going out. He was. A lot of people say that they weren't testing Herbert's arm. Now they draft 2 receivers, both from TCU, which is
they're going to throw downfield more.
They're going to throw downfield where they should have been doing, because Mike Williams is an absolute beast, and Keenan Allen, when healthy, which is obviously a big if and when. If he's got plenty of talent too, so there's a lot of great pieces on the Chargers if they can just put it together here. Now they have a new offensive coordinator that came from Dallas, Moore. right? Kellen Moore. And I think Kellen Moore is more prone to go downfield because you've seen it happen with Lee and some of those big receivers, Galladay on Dallas. So I could see them improving that. I just think that they have one of the worst coaches in Staley, and maybe Lombardi was the fallback guy. I don't know. I mean, Staley was one year he was super aggressive, and then last year when he should have been aggressive, he sat back and let the Jaguars beat him when they had them 99% dead in the second half there, man.
Yeah, the LA Chargers to me are a team that I never expect to see at the end, no matter how good. I mean, I saw them not make the playoffs with Dan Fouts. You know what I mean? I mean, guys like that, tremendous competitors and great players. It's just, I remember my buddy Doug Buffone telling me the Bears drafted them in the NFL and the Chargers drafted them in the AFL. And they wanted Doug Buffone, who played for the Bears for 14, 15 years, linebacker next to Butkus and others, to play for the Chargers. He grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Okay. He said, my whole life I wanted to play for the NFL. I just couldn't see being an NFL player back then in San Diego, California. It just wasn't conducive to football. And so far, he's been pretty well right about all that. For over the years, from Chuck Muncie, to John Hadel, to John Jefferson. We can go on and on about the named players, Junior Seau, Steve Mix, or I could go all night long.
LaDainian
Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk, all night long. Yeah, Marshall Faulk played for him, right?
He was the Rams. He was in the Rams.
The Rams, I'm sorry. But other guys, Lance Allworth. I'll go all night long with great players that, very, very spotty success in postseason.
Yeah, very, very spotty. Mike, thank you so much for discussing some pigskin with me. Always a blast talking with you. Where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and media?
I got a podcast dropping soon, my third episode of Raging Mouth about my life story. It's on my Twitter handle, North to North, Spotify. It's on YouTube. Make sure you watch. There's 2 episodes up already. I'm also working for Bear.
Is this like a biography type deal?
Yeah, it's a biography thing called Raging Mouth, sponsored by Raul Jewelers here in Chicago. It was funded and everything, and you'll hear episode 3, but episode 1 and 2 is out now. You can go to North, my Twitter feed, NORTH and number 2, NORTH. Scroll down, you'll see it all there. I'm frequent with my Twitter. I like to stay with it, whatever it's called now. Also working on ESPN 1000. Not only have a podcast, but a show Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, picking games called The Odds Couple with Carmen DeFalco. So everything's busy. I'm fine. I do a lot of these during the football season because I love what I did on the street corner. That's what we're doing. What we did on the street corner. That's it, folks.
Well, you've had an amazing life. And so I'm very interested in listening to
you, my friend.
But hey, in 2030, when you're 77, your life's going to be amazing from now until then, too. So you might have to do another biography. You're talking about our Bears and our
let's hope so. You're a gentleman, buddy. I appreciate you having me on.
Have a great week, Mike. Talk to you later.
You too, buddy. So long, everybody.